come to the story itself. What made you think of this? Did you do a math that if I own a car, I'll be spending 5 lakh rupees, the capital cost will be so much, the rate of return, the depreciation, and if I were to pay, so much per car, it would be cheaper. Did you do the math in your head before
I started Ola?
Huh?
Before I started Ola?
Yes, in 2010.
If I would have done that math, I would have ended up buying a car at that point. Because the industry was still being run with a very different kind of a vision. Right? But that's not how I believe first-generation entrepreneurs end up starting off, right? For me at least, and I think I can speak for many first-generation entrepreneurs, it's about the vision. And today's reality might be very different from the vision, but if you hold that, the vision very clear, and you won't get there on day one. It'll take years and years, and we're not even there. It'll take us another 10 years to get to maybe half of that journey. But if you hold that clear, you will constantly make progress every day. You will learn more about your industry. You will learn more about your consumers. You will learn more about your suppliers. You will keep innovating so that every stakeholder is improving their experience and keep building towards the vision. So I don't believe innovations happen in a big bang approach. You have to keep learning more and keep innovating.
No, I was just wondering if the math inspired you. But then what triggered? Why did you think of this? Is it that you were stranded one day and realized that this is a service needed? What triggered that thought?
So I had my own personal experiences when I was working for 2 years of not owning a car and having bad experiences with the public transport and with in those times we had a few taxi companies, right? Yes. So the experiences were not stellar. Pretty much they were costly, bad quality, took time to arrive, you had to call a call center. If you remember back to those days 4 or 5 years ago, it was a very different experience. But just talking a little bit about the opportunity. If you look at India, unlike the West where everybody owns a car, in India only about 2% or 3% of Indians own a car, right? It's much less a penetrated market. And already our roads are blocked with so much chaotic traffic, right? And in this system, we as a society cannot have a future where everybody owns a car. It's just not sustainable because we cannot build the kind of roads required to enable that. So a future of shared utility and shared ownership of assets or shared usership of assets is what we believe in, and that's what we've been driving up. And if people end up using ride-sharing services, not just in a limited way as a car service, but across the kind of multimodal platform that we have now, it can actually take a lot of vehicles off the road.
Yes, of course. Yeah. No, certainly it can become a public service, but have you worked towards it? Have you gone to, say, a skyscraper, a huge building complex, and sold the idea that none of you need to own cars? If the building offered, say, 20 Olas, nobody needed to own. And how many hours do we run the car? Maybe an hour a day, or maybe half an hour a day? Have you tried that idea with any building society?
The one person I have tried that idea with and took me some time to succeed a few years ago, but I finally did, was my wife.
Okay.
When I started Ola, we were dating, we were not married, and she had her car. And it took me 1.5 to 2 years to convince her to use Ola instead of her car. But once she started using it, there was no looking back. I'll tell you another story. This is a small town story. So I grew up in a tier 2 town called Ludhiana. And my parents are still there, live there. Both of them are doctors there. And between the two of them, they own one car, which my dad obviously goes to his hospital every day in. And my mother used to wait around for my dad to come back to take her shopping. Yeah. So it used to be an encumbrance on my dad's schedule and my mother's schedule. And when we started Ola in Ludhiana, my mother felt like it's a huge lease of freedom for her. Absolutely. Because she could now go to the grocery store on her own. She could go to the movies with her friends on her own. She didn't have to wait for my dad to come home or to have a driver employed who will go pick up my dad's car, bring it home. So it's a very different feeling of freedom that a lot of Indians have started to feel because this service exists.
But then doesn't it make sense? Will that be the next step, that you start working with governments to say that, you make it legally, uncompetitive or legally disadvantaged to own a car and to run such a service? Is that happening in any country at all?
I think legal, jo hoga so hoga, but even from a consumer or driving experience perspective, driving in our cities is not pleasurable anymore, right? And
not in Bombay, at least.
And you don't live in Bangalore, so.
Okay. No, I don't.
So driving in our cities is not going to improve anytime soon. So the market needs and the market realities are going to force people to use these services a lot more.
Okay, you see that as the new reality, that people will stop owning. I mean, people have stopped driving for sure. Most of the guests who come to our studio normally come, in one of the hailed taxis. They don't come in their own car because parking, everything is an issue. Even if they get a driver, getting the driver to come to pick them up is a hassle, in especially the place where CNBC-TV18 studios are.
And our approach has been, and going forward even more so, you will see us build a much more broader set of services.
But has it happened in any country?
Actually, we are one of the global leaders in doing that. So if you look at our platforms today, there are the car services, which you can have Ola Prime, Ola Mini, Ola Micro, which is our bread and butter business.
Yes.
Then about a couple of years back, we launched our auto rickshaw business, which is all about first mile, last mile. Auto rickshaws is not a certain class of society. My wife uses auto rickshaws to go shopping around the block, right? If you go to Mumbai, everybody uses auto rickshaws. In fact, the biggest mode of transport in Bandra, which is the most premium area in the country. So auto rickshaws is all about quick first mile, last mile transport. We have a very large and growing business in that. Then we've also started focusing on how can we partner with the government and different cities and agencies in enabling better public transport, right? Public transport in India should...
Which city governments have you spoken with?
A lot, actually. So we acquired a company about a few months back which partners with public transit agencies to help improve information flow. So you can book a ticket in a bus service on this app. It's called Riddler. And we do a lot more, we're doing a lot more both with large cities and small cities in enabling much better mass transit.
All right. Okay, I'm being told that we have to wind up this conversation, but I want to do it with a rapid fire, if you don't mind. Okay, so the first rapid fire question, which is your biggest lesson that you learned from your journey?
Biggest lesson is, business is about people. It's not about strategy or operations. In the end, if you understand people well, if you motivate people well, they will create a lot of magic, right? But if you focus too much on operations, and as a first-time entrepreneur, I used to do a lot of heavy lifting myself, and I used to say, "Usko nahi samajh aa raha, to main sikhaunga usko." Aisa nahi hota.
Okay, what is your highest high?
Highest high is, it's when consumers say they truly prefer and value your service, and it has changed their lives, and it has had impact on society. But
did it ever happen that some consumer told you that and you felt a high?
Every time. Even today when, let's say I go back home and somebody comes up to me and says, "Tumhare karan I'm less reliant on my husband," or a lot of old people who live in small towns and their kids stay away from them, find a lot of freedom in this service. So the impact that we can create in society is what truly gives, I think, most entrepreneurs an high.
Was there any moment of low when?
A lot of lows. I think highs and lows are part of the journey of sports people also and entrepreneurs in equal measure, right? Lows are, again, when you feel that, oh, you should have done this. And you make so many mistakes every month, every quarter, right? And then when you look back, you feel like, how could I make such a dumb mistake? Right? Why didn't I choose the right strategy? Why didn't I hire the right person? And those are low points in your journey.
When Walmart offered that huge money for Flipkart, was it a high or was it a low?
I mean, I'm agnostic to it. It's not that it's a deal that I'm part of. But I feel...
But you realize what valuations can be.
We are in the business of value creation, not valuation. Right? If we...
Wow, that deserves a...
If we focus long-term on having impact for society, we will create a lot of value and we will have a lot of valuations. That's our focus.
Okay, I think that's the sentence of the evening, definitely. We are value creators. We are not in the game of valuation. Gentlemen and ladies, a round of applause for someone who has made us so much more mobile than we were.